Hi, it's Pat here. In today's session on Customer Master Maintenance, we're going to look at the three sections of the Customer Master Record. We have the General Data section, which spans all company codes. We have the Company Code Data section, which is specific to each company code. And we have the Sales Area Data section. Under the General Data section, we look at the address information, control data, payment details, marketing, unloading points, export data, and contact person. In the company code data section, we look at account management, payment transaction settings, correspondence, and insurance. In the sales area data section, we look at sales tab, shipping information, billing document settings, settings for other documents, and a subsection on partner functions. There are three sets of transactions that we can use to access customer master data. The first one is in the accounting menu. So if we go to accounting in the main menu, financial accounting, we go to accounts receivable, master records. You can see here we have FD01, FD02, and FD03, which are used to create, change, and display customer master records. If I double click on FD02, I'm asked for a customer code and a company code. I just select what I've used previously. And here you can see we're in the general data section of the customer master record, and we also have a company code data section. We go back out now. The other two areas are within logistics. So if we go to logistics, sales and distribution, master data, business partner, customer, and then we have three folders. We have create, change, and display. And within each folder, we have a VD transaction and an XD transaction. The VD transaction is specific to sales and distribution. So we're asked for a customer and a sales area. We'll come to sales area in just a moment. Let me just show you what you get here. So you get a general data section and you get a sales area data section. We go back out, and if we use XD02, here we're asked for a customer code, a company code, and sales area information. And if we look inside here, we go to the sales area data section, but we also have a general data section and a company code data section. Let's go into XD02 again. I mentioned earlier that we need to enter sales area information here. And a sales area is made up of a combination of sales organization, distribution channel, and division. A sales organization is assigned to one and only one company code, but a company code can have more than one sales organization. A distribution channel can be assigned to one or more sales organization. Likewise, a division is assigned to one or more sales organization. So a sales organization belonging to one company code can have within it multiple distribution channels and multiple divisions. And the sales area is a combination of one sales organization, one distribution channel, and one division. Now let's continue from here and look at the data within the customer master record. First, we'll go to the general data section by clicking on general data at the top. In the first tab here, we have address information for the customer. The information you enter here is self-explanatory, so I'm just going to concentrate on some of the features. In each subsection, you have a plus button to the right. By clicking on that, you expand the section to get additional lines, which you can use if required. By clicking again, you contract the section. If you click on the button at the top left, you expand all sections. By clicking again, it contracts. The search term field here is normally used to hold an abbreviation of the customer name and is used to search for that customer in customer listings. There's a second search term field which is used independently of the first one and can hold perhaps an internal reference to that customer. In the next subsection down, you enter address information including country, region, transportation zone. You can select these settings from drop-down menus. Scrolling down, we have post office box address. So you have a post office box number, a postal code, and in certain countries, companies can have their own postal code, in which case you would enter it in this field here. Then you have communication information, the language you use, telephone number, mobile, fax, email, and so on. You have an other communication button where you can select additional headings. For instance, you might want to select URL and enter the home page of the customer. And at the bottom, in the last field, you can enter comments about the customer if you wish. Now we move to the next tab in the general data section of the customer master. This is called control data. As you can see here, certain fields are grayed out. The reason for this is that in the customer group to which this customer has been assigned, the status of this field has been set to display only. There are 4 possible statuses for fields in the customer master, and they are suppressed, display only, required, or optional. Field status is set at the customer group level, and to find out what customer group this customer belongs to, we go to Extras, Administrative Data, and here we can see that when this customer was created, the account was assigned to account group 0001, which is called sold to party. If we look at the account control subsection here at the top, we see the first field is called vendor. I have entered a vendor number here. This is used if our customer is also a vendor and we want to clear or net vendor and customer documents against one another during a payment run. 2 conditions need to be met in order for this to work. The first is that the vendor number is entered in the customer master and the customer number in the vendor master. The second condition is that in the company code data section of the customer master, a field called clear with vendor is ticked, and the corresponding field in the vendor master called clear with customer is also ticked. The field below vendor is called trading partner. If this customer is a sister company of ours in the corporate group, we would enter the trading partner number in this field here from a drop-down list. The trading partner is the company to which the company code of our sister company has been assigned. Often for convenience, the company and the company code will have the same value. Trading partner data is used to eliminate intercompany trading during the preparation of consolidated group accounts. To the right, we have a field called corporate group, and this refers to any third-party group that our customer may belong to. So, if our customer is not a sister company of ours in the same group, but is part of a third-party group, we can enter a freely defined code here, and we would use the same group code for other customers that are part of this same third-party group. The field above, authorization, is used to provide extended authorization protection for transactions on an account. You would set up an authorization group, assign users to that group, and create rules for transactions posted by users of that group. Authorization groups have not been set up in this system. In the next subsection below, we have reference data. At the top, we have international location numbers, 1, 2, and the check digit. These are used in Germany. Then we have industry. We can select the industry that our customer belongs to from a drop-down list. Below that, we have the main train station used by the customer. Underneath that, we have a train station that's used for express deliveries to the customer. Then we have transportation zone. Again, there's a lookup for that. And to the right, we have location code, which contains the city coordinates of the headquarters of our customer, if applicable. In the subsection below, we have tax information. What should be entered in the fields tax number 1 and tax number 2 depends on the country of our company code. The easiest way to see what should be entered in this field is to click in the field and press F1. For example, if we scroll down here and look up country United States, we see that you would enter the social security number for an individual in this field here. Likewise, if you want to know what you should enter for tax number 2, click in the field and press F1. Find the country of your company code and determine what value should be entered in this field. Moving across to the right, we have a checkbox called equalization tax. This is only used in the retail trade in Spain. Moving down, we have a checkbox called natural person. If we look at that, we find that it's only used in certain countries to denote that the account is that of a natural person. Below that, you have sales purchase tax, and this indicates that this customer is liable for VAT. Moving over to the left, fiscal address. If we have a customer account in our system which contains the tax address for this customer, perhaps the head office account, we would enter that here. The field below, county code, is used in the US for county tax and also in Denmark. Below that, city code, again only used in the US for city tax. Tax jurisdiction code, which is used in the US. Above that, we have the VAT registration number. So in this case, we've entered a GB VAT registration number. If your customer has locations in more than one tax jurisdiction, you can enter multiple VAT registration numbers by clicking on the other button to the right. And here you would select the country code and enter the VAT registration number. You can have as many VAT registration numbers as you want, but only one per country. Bear in mind that we're in the general data section of the customer master, so the settings here apply to all company codes. Now we move to the next tab, payment transactions. We only need to enter bank details here if we have authorization to collect payments directly from the customer's bank account, perhaps via direct debit. If this is the case, we can have the automatic payment program in transaction F110 generate a DME file or data medium exchange file, which will then be sent to the bank, and the bank will debit the customer's account and credit one of our bank accounts. The settings for our bank account to be credited are set in the customer code section of the customer master. The information can also be transmitted to the bank via iDocs or intermediate documents and EDI. To set the bank details, we would enter a country key here, either directly or from a drop-down menu. We then enter a bank key, and if we do a lookup, we will see all of the banks that have been already set up in the system. We would then enter a bank account number, the account holder name. In this field here, we would enter a control key for certain countries. For instance, in the US, 01 denotes that the account is a checking account. We would enter an IBAN value. I'll come back to that in a moment. In this field here, bank type, if our customer has more than one bank account, we would set a key here for each bank account. And that key would then be used in billing documents to determine which bank account is to be used for collections. We then have a field where we can enter reference details. Scrolling to the right, we have the name. We go back to the left a little. We have a field here called collection authorization. In order for this account to be used by the automatic payment program, we must check this box. If we don't have the customer's bank already set up in our system, we can enter it from here. So let's say we go to GB for Great Britain, and let's enter a value here and press return. We see that this bank key has not been already set in the system. So here we can enter the bank name, region, street, city, branch, the SWIFT code, and as you can see at the bottom, the bank number has been defaulted from the bank key. The bank number is a unique identifier for the bank. For example, the sort code. So we can set up a bank on the fly if the bank is not already in the system. So let's just call this ABC Bank. And I'm going to enter a SWIFT code here. I have to know this is a valid SWIFT code. And I press return. Now I need to enter a bank account number. So I'll enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's return. And now if we press on this button here, which is maintain IBAN, we get a message saying check and confirm the proposed IBAN. And here we see that an IBAN has been proposed. So it has used the information that we've already entered, the country, the bank number, the bank account, and the SWIFT code to propose an IBAN value. We can accept this or change it if it's incorrect and continue. We have a bank data button here where we can review the details of the bank. Here you can see what we've just entered. We have a minus button here, which is delete bank details. We would just click on a line and press delete. And in the button payment cards, we can set up credit cards here if we are going to collect payment via credit cards. In this system, we don't have the payment cards configured, but you would set up Visa, MasterCard, American Express, etc. as the type. You would enter a card number, a validity date, the cardholder name. You would enter the valid from date. If there are multiple cards, you would enter a default by clicking on this box here. As you can see here in the IBAN value field, the IBAN that we saw as proposed earlier has now been entered. If we look at the bottom of the screen to the left, we have a panel called Payment Transactions. Here we can enter an alternative pair. So if another customer pays for invoices on this customer account, we would select the account number for that customer and enter it here. Underneath is a field that's used in Germany, and it indicates whether or not payments sent to the bank via DME files are to be notified to the Bundesbank. Underneath that, instruction key. If we look at the available values here, we see that we can select the type of instructions to be sent to the bank. For instance, charges to be paid by the payer or the payee. Moving to the right, we have alternative payer in the document. And this controls whether or not we are allowed to make changes to the payer in individual documents. If the individual entries box is checked, then we can make changes to the bank details and the address details in individual documents. If we want to restrict the allowed payers for changes in documents, we can enter the payer accounts in this panel here. And then only these accounts are allowed as alternative pairs in documents. Next, we move to the Marketing tab. Here we can enter some marketing information about the customer. Under Classification, if we use the services of AC Nielsen, we can enter the Nielsen category ID here. We can enter a customer classification if we've got it set up in the system, the industry of our customer, an industry code, regional market, hierarchy assignment. Here you can enter a value of 1 to 10. This is the level that the customer will have if set up as a node in a hierarchy in profitability analysis. Below here we can set some key figures for the customer. We can enter annual sales, the currency, and what year it refers to. We can set the number of employees and in what year. And we can enter a fiscal year variant from the drop-down menu. At the bottom here, under Sales Prospecting, we can select a legal status for the customer. For example, corporation, partnership, individual. Next over we have unloading points. Here we can set up various unloading points for the customer. In this example here, I've set up ramp 1. If we have multiple unloading points, we would check 1 as the default. In the next column, we have a calendar, and we can select from the drop-down list. I've selected 5D, which is 5 days with holidays. In the next column, we have goods receiving hours. If we click on the button below, we can select from a drop-down list. I've selected 001, and you see the times below. There's a list of just 2 available here. If we check the button called receiving points, we can set up a receiving point. For instance, I've entered reception, and we can associate that with an unloading point. So if we do a lookup, we have just 1, which I set up earlier. We go back from there, go to departments. Here we can select a department from a drop-down list and associate a receiving point, again from the drop-down list. So I selected ramp 1, and I had associated receiving point reception with ramp 1, so it has entered reception in this field here. In the next tab, export data, we would record any restrictions on US companies from trading with this customer. In the first field here, country, we select a country, and this is the country that placed this customer on any one of the boycott lists. TDO stands for Table of Denial Orders, and SDN stands for Specially Designated Nationals. If this customer is on a TDO list, we would check the TDO checkbox here. We would also enter the date that this customer was last checked against the TDO list. Likewise, in the SDN date, we would enter the date that this customer was last checked against the SDN list. If the customer is on the SDN list, we would check the SDN checkbox. If we have our own boycott list, and this customer is on that list, we would check the boycott checkbox. And in the boycott date field, we would enter the date that this customer was last checked against our own boycott list. Under usage down below, we would enter whether the product sold to this customer is mainly for civilian usage or military usage. In classification, at the bottom, we would enter a reason for this customer going on any of the boycott lists. It could be connected with biochemical warfare, nuclear non-proliferation, national security, or missile technology. In the final tab of the general data section of the customer master, we can enter contact details. As you can see here, I've just entered 2 names. If we double click on one of them, you can see that we can enter quite a lot of detail about this person. If we have a long list of contacts and we want to find a contact, we can enter the name in here. For example, DOE, and press return, and it goes to the person of that name. Down here we can enter home address from this button, visiting hours when we can see that person, partner function. We'll come to partner functions in the sales area data section of the customer master, and additional information. Now we go to the company code specific section of the customer master. We click on company code data. In the first tab here, account management, we have accounting information at the top. The first field is a reconciliation account, and this is the GL account that holds the customer balance in the balance sheet. The next field down, called head office. If this is a branch account and we enter a head office account in here, all transactions on this branch account will be posted in the head office account with a reference in the line item to this branch account. In the next field down, we can enter an authorization group for extended authorization protection. This is similar to the authorization group we saw in the control data tab of the general data section of the customer master. But any value entered here overrides the setting in the general data section. Underneath that, we have release group. If we have a release strategy for posting to customers, we can create a release group or release groups, assign users to those groups, and have an approval path for postings to the customer account. Moving over to the sort key, we can select a value here that determines the sort order of line items in the customer account. Next down we have preference indicator. This refers to the Berlin subsidy law and is only used for companies with headquarters in Berlin. Below that, we have cash management group, and here we would enter the cash management group for cash management and cash forecasting. In the value adjustment field, we would select a key that controls how open items are processed if and when value adjustments are made. No value adjustment keys are currently configured in this system. In the next subsection down, interest calculation. If we want to calculate interest on open items on this customer account, we would make the settings here. In the reference data section, you could enter a previous account number. This would be a legacy account number if this customer was transferred from a legacy system. To the right, if this customer is also an employee, you would enter the personnel number here. And in the buying group field, you would enter a customer account code for an independent buying group. That is a group of customers who form a buying group as opposed to customers that are branches of a head office account. This field is used for reporting purposes only. The subsection at the bottom, default data for tax reports, is only used for income tax reporting in Argentina. Now we move to the Payment Transactions tab. In the first field here, we enter terms of payment. If we make a setting here, the terms of payment we enter will default into customer documents. As you can see here, terms of payment have not been entered. In the section Sales Area Data, you will see that we can also enter terms of payment, which will be defaulted into customer documents. Below that, we would enter credit memo payment terms, and below that, default payment terms for bills of exchange. In the field time until check is paid, we enter the number of days it takes for a customer check to clear through the banking system and for our account to be credited with the funds. The system will take this number of days plus the terms of payment into account in determining when an invoice is due for payment. In the field tolerance group, we enter a tolerance group which determines the amounts of payment differences that can be written off. The amount is specified as a percentage and an absolute amount, and whichever is the lower applies. In the field known negotiated leave, we enter a key which indicates periods during which we know the customer will be on vacation. This information is taken into account in determining when invoices are overdue for payment. We check the payment history record checkbox if payment history is to be specifically recorded for this customer. Now we move to automatic payment transactions. We make settings here if we have authorization to collect payments directly from the customer's bank account, for example, via direct debit. In the general data section, we made the settings for the customer's bank account. In this area, we make settings specific to this company code. In the field payment methods, we select the payment method or methods that we want to use. In this case, I've selected T for direct debit, which is listed here under incoming payments. In the field below, we can enter the account number of an alternative payer. This is similar to the alternative payer we saw in the general data section, but the setting here overrides any settings in the general data section. Below that, we can enter a bill of exchange limit. To the right, if for any reason we wanted to block this customer from having payment transactions generated via the automatic payment program, we would enter a code here. Below that is the house bank. This is the bank account that the payment will be posted to. Below in the field grouping key, if we wanted to group transactions together for payment, we would enter a key here. In this case, there is one key listed, which is document types. So if we wanted to generate payment transactions by document type, we would enter the key in here. In the field single payment, if this is checked, then each document generates an individual payment transaction. In the field below, clearing with vendor, if our customer is also a vendor, and we have set up the vendor account in the customer master and the customer account in the vendor master, and we check this box and the equivalent in the vendor master record, then the payment program will automatically clear or net vendor and customer documents. In the field below, if we want to send a payment advice to our customer via EDI, we would check this box. Below that, in the field different pair in document, if we allow changes to the pair at document level, we would check this box. We saw a similar field in the general data section, but the setting here overrides any setting at the general data level. To the right is a button called Allowed Pair. Here we can enter a list of allowed pairs at document level. This is similar to what we saw in the general data section. Above that is Lockbox. If we use Lockbox accounts to collect payments from customers, we could enter a Lockbox key here. The field above is only used in the US. It is an account with the remit to address that checks are to be sent to. At the bottom of the screen, we have two fields relating to payment advice notes. The first one is reason code conversion, and it relates to how external reason codes in payment advice notes are to be mapped to internal reason codes in the system. To the right, we have a selection rule, and here we select what rule is to be used to identify individual line items in remittance advice notes received. In the next tab, we have correspondence settings. At the top, we have dunning data. Dunning refers to a system for following up overdue payments. In the first field, we would select a dunning procedure. The dunning procedure determines the number of levels in the dunning process. For example, level 1 might be a simple request for payment. Then level 2 might be a more strongly worded request for payment, and so on up to the level at which you would institute legal action against the customer to recover payment. Also in the dunning procedure, you would set an interval between dunning levels, so when the dunning procedure is run, the system checks the last time the customer was dunned, and it will only send the next letter after the specified interval. In the dunning recipient, we can select the account number of the customer who is to receive dunning correspondence, if different from the current customer number. For example, a head office account that is responsible for payment of invoices on this account. Last dunned would show the date that the customer last received dunning correspondence. Dunning clerk refers to the individual who is responsible for this dunning process with this customer. If for any reason we wanted to exclude this customer from the dunning process, we would do so in the dunning block field. We would select from the drop-down list, and we would select B in this case, which is blocked for dunning. The next field would hold a date. We have a normal dunning process and a legal dunning process. This field would hold the date on which the legal dunning process was instigated. In the field dunning level, we would see the dunning level at which this customer is currently. Next, we have grouping key. Here we would set a key to determine how we group open items within the dunning process. Dunning areas button shows subdivisions of the company code. We can set up multiple dunning areas within a company code. Normally, we would just have one dunning area in a company code, but if we have more than one, we would see information on each dunning area in this section here. In the next subsection, we have correspondence settings for this customer. In the first field, we would select the person in our organization who deals with this customer. Next field, we would enter our account number in the customer system. Below that, we would enter our contact person in the customer's organization, along with telephone number, fax, email address. At the bottom, we can enter additional information if required. In the field account statement, We select the frequency with which we send statements to this customer. As you can see from the drop-down list, we have various options. In the field Collective Invoice Variant, we can make a setting for an interval after which we generate a collective invoice for this customer. In the final subsection at the bottom, we have payment notice information. So when payments are posted to the customer account, we can send notices to the customer with or without cleared items. We can send similar notices to our sales department, our accounting department, and our legal department. In the last area of the company code data section of the customer master, we have export credit insurance information. If we have export credit insurance for this customer, we could enter the policy number here, the export credit agency or institution number in this field, the amount of the export credit insurance, the validity date, the number of months for which open items are insured, and the percentage deductible from payments under the policy. Now we move to the sales area data section of the customer master. In the first tab, we have sales settings. Here we can select the world region for the customer, the territory, the sales district, customer group, how we rate this customer under an ABC classification, the currency that we use for transactions with this customer. The checkbox below can be used to switch off rounding of quantities in transactions with this customer. In the order probability field, we enter a percentage probability of inquiries or quotations for items becoming items in actual sales orders for this customer. This information is used for requirements planning. As we've seen previously, we can use authorization groups to provide extended authorization protection for transactions with this customer. If a customer regularly orders the same items from us, we can store a group of these items as master data under a proposal ID. In the field Item Proposal, we can enter this proposal ID. Then when we enter a sales order for this customer, we will be presented with this proposal for the items in the order. In the next field, we can enter our account reference in the customer system. Next one down, Unit of Measure Group. Here we can select a group of units of measure that can be used in transactions with this customer. Exchange rate type. This is the exchange rate type to be used for converting foreign currency amounts to local currency in transactions with this customer. In the next field down, Product Proposal, Customer Procedure, we can enter a setting that determines how a product proposal is displayed in sales orders and what level of detail it contains. You can use product attributes here to indicate what type of product the customer does not want to buy. For example, a customer may not want to buy products that are manufactured overseas. The settings here can be used when the system proposes substitute products. If you check a product attribute here, products with the corresponding attribute checked in the material master will not be proposed in sales orders for this customer. Moving down to the pricing and statistics subsection, you can see here that we can enter a price group. A setting here would indicate a group of customers with similar pricing requirements. We can see from the drop-down menu the options available in this system. In the next field down, we enter a customer pricing procedure. This is a method of calculating prices for products sold to this customer. It holds rules, for instance, how discounts are calculated, how tax is applied, and so on. In the next field, if we maintain a price list for this customer, we would enter the ID of this price list in this field. In the field Customer Statistics Group, we would enter a value that indicates what statistics are saved for this customer. Finally, in the subsection below, Agency Business, if we check this box, it would indicate that we can carry out agency business with this customer. Next, we look at the Shipping tab. In the first field under shipping, we set a priority for deliveries to this customer. We can use this then to organize deliveries in order of priority. To the right, there's a checkbox called Order Combination. If this is checked, we can combine orders for this customer into a single delivery. Over to the left, we have shipping conditions. The setting here determines the shipping point and the route proposed for sales documents. So, for example, if our customer requires delivery by courier, we would make a setting here so that the shipping point proposed is perhaps our mailroom, and the route proposed would be the shortest route to the nearest courier depot. Next one down, we have delivering plant, and this is the plant from which deliveries are made to this customer. Then we have irrelevant for POD. If we check this box, we expect proof of delivery for deliveries to this customer. And when this checkbox is checked, we can enter a number of days in the field below. This is the number of days within which we expect to receive proof of delivery for deliveries to this customer. Below, we have a subsection on partial deliveries. If we check the first checkbox here, we can only make delivery of complete orders to this customer. If we leave this checkbox unchecked, we can make partial deliveries, and under partial delivery per item, we can make some settings. Leaving this blank means that partial delivery is allowed. The line item level, we look at the drop-down list. If we select D, for instance, there's no limit to the number of partial deliveries. We might make this setting for a long-term scheduling agreement where partial deliveries are the norm. If we selected B, for example, we could make partial deliveries of orders, but only complete delivery of each line item. In the field below, we would set a maximum number of partial deliveries per line item. Next down, we have under-over delivery setting. If we check this box here, we can make unlimited over or under deliveries. If we check this box, we cannot enter anything in the two fields below. If it's unchecked, we would enter a percentage tolerance for under and over deliveries. In the last subsection, general transportation area, we would enter a transportation zone from the drop-down list. As you can see here, the transportation zone for this customer is NI, which is Northern Ireland. Now we move to the Billing Documents tab in the Sales Area Data section of the Customer Master. In the first subsection, headed Billing Document, we have a number of checkboxes. The first one, called Subsequent Invoice Processing, if checked, indicates that billing documents marked for manual maintenance will be printed out in the normal way. Manual maintenance, or subsequent processing, just means that the billing document will not be posted automatically to the general ledger when the document is generated. This allows for amendments to be made before the general ledger is updated. Whether or not a billing document is automatically posted to the general ledger is determined by a setting in configuration for the billing document type. If the posting block indicator is set in configuration, the billing document will not be automatically posted to the general ledger and must be released manually to accounting. Documents can be released either individually in transaction VF02, change billing document, or en masse in transaction VFX3, blocked billing docs. The next checkbox, called rebate, indicates whether or not this customer can be given rebates. To the right, we have a checkbox called price determination. If this is checked, and a customer is a node in a customer hierarchy, and we have a pricing condition record set at the node level, price will be determined at the node level instead of at the hierarchy level. Next down in the field invoicing dates, we can select a calendar to be used for dates in billing documents. Below that, in invoicing list dates, we can select a calendar to be used when generating invoice listings. For example, if we're sending listings out to a third-party agency for collection or for invoice discounting. In the subsection below, delivery and payment terms, we enter the Incoterms in this field, and to the right we can enter additional information about the Incoterms. Below that again we have terms of payment. This determines the default terms of payment setting in sales orders. If you remember, in the company code data section, in the tab payment transactions, we didn't set default terms of payment. Below we have accounting and account assignment group. The setting we make here determines the GL accounts that are posted to for sales transactions. Finally, at the bottom, we have taxes. And here we select the settings relating to tax for this customer. We select the country, the tax category from a drop-down list, and we set the tax classification. Again, we have a drop-down list for this. Here, 0 means the customer is exempt from tax, and 1 means the customer is liable for tax, as you can see here in the description to the right. If the customer has a tax exemption license, you would enter the license information here. The number, the valid from and valid to dates, and you would check this box here to indicate that the license has been confirmed. Next, we move to documents associated with sales transactions. On the left, we can select output type from a drop-down list. As you can see here, we have inquiry confirmation, quotation confirmation, order confirmation, contract confirmation, delivery note, scheduling agreement confirmation, and invoice. In the next column over, we select the language. In this case, English has been selected. The next one, we have transmission medium, and we have selected 1 for print output. We look at the drop-down list. We could have selected 2 for fax, for instance, or 6 for EDI transmission. In this column here, we have the dispatch time. As you can see, 1 has been selected here, which is send with periodically scheduled job. And we have some other options in the list here, as you can see. And finally, in the column to the right, we indicate the number of copies of each document that we are going to output. Now we move to the final tab in the sales area data section of the customer master. This is called partner functions. As you can see on the left here, we have a partner function abbreviation, and this can be selected from a drop-down list. We have a long list of partner functions set in the system. For each of the partner functions set here, sold to party, bill to party, payer, ship to party, and parent company, the same customer number has been entered. However, if a customer has premises in various locations, each perhaps performing a different function, such as ordering, paying invoices, receiving shipments, and so on, we can set up a customer account for each of those locations with a separate number, and we enter the appropriate address information and other settings in the customer master for that account. And then in this section here, we associate each of the customer accounts with the main customer account. We can set up more than one account for many of the partner functions, except in this system, partner function Z1, which has been set up as the parent company, and this is set to unique in configuration. If we have multiple accounts set for a partner function, we would check the box on the right here to indicate the default customer account for that partner function in sales documents. That wraps up our session on customer master maintenance. As always, if you need information on any particular field in SAP, click in the field and press F1. Thank you for watching and good luck.